When recording into Logic, it's important to understand some basic preference settings. To get to your preferences, simply go to Logic, Preferences, Audio. This is your audio preferences window. Right now we have our devices selected. So we're going to choose our devices for input and output, and we're going to choose some basic settings. So Core Audio is enabled. That's good. Output device, built-in output. You can choose whatever device you've got, whether it's a Pro Tools audio interface, or in my case, a Sapphire. You can also use AirPlay if you wanted to transmit it to, I don't know, your living room or something like that. And then you have your various line outputs and digital outputs on your computer. For input device, I have Sapphire. That's my audio interface that I use at home. One of the most important settings is the I/O buffer size. I have this buffer size pretty large. 256 is pretty large. We have these other settings here, and basically what this is it's how long we're giving the computer to think about the audio that just got into it. So the audio has to come into the computer. It's got to computer's got to do its thing, converting it into audio and then playing it back. The smaller that buffer is, the more the computer has to kind of sweat to get that audio heard. If we have a really high buffer size like 256, it gives the computer a lot of time to think, but it gives us a lot of latency. So we're going to hear a delay from when we talk on the mic to when the computer plays it back to us. If the I/O buffer size is really, really small, that's great for recording. You can actually get as low as 64 if you don't have a lot of tracks going on. A good standard for recording is between 64 and 32, and then for when you're playing back and mixing, 128 to 512, and even for really big sessions, 1024 is a good setting. You'll also get some latency with your software instruments if this buffer size is really high. I prefer somewhere between 64 and 128 when I'm using software instruments. I think that 128 is still performable, but if you can get away with 64 with the newer processors of today, that's a great setting to have it at. If you hear some strange clicks and pops, any artifacting happening in your session, simply change this buffer size. It might help you out. Down below we have 24-bit recording. 24-bit recording has to do with the dynamic range of your recording. The higher the bit rate, the more dynamic range you get. So if you're dealing with something that goes between really soft and really loud, it's generally good to have it set to 24-bit. Honestly, these days, most interfaces are 24-bit, and 24-bit recording ain't a big deal. So 24-bit recording, I suggest just leaving that on. Now we should also look at our project settings, look at the audio settings for our project, and make sure that those are set correctly.